The Best Hockey State video was one of my most popular videos, and I got a lot of comments on that video, most of them being, "Where is TJ Oshie?" Let me make this straight. TJ Oshie is not from Minnesota. He was born in Washington and didn't even move to Minnie till he was in high school. The second thing was people bringing up the fact I only had 4 states in the tournament, so I revamped the tournament. Rules. We will be using What If Sports to simulate these games. A player must have been born in the state they rep. All birthplaces are according to Quan Hockey. States can use players who played at any time in history, but must still have 12 forwards, 6 defensemen, and 2 goaltenders. All players will be based on how they played in their prime. That is for both active and past players. Teams will be split into 2 groups, Central and East Coast. Teams will play a round-robin group play. The top 2 teams in each group advance to the playoffs. The first seed of each group will play the opposite group's second seed in a best-of-7 series. The winning teams will move on to the finals for one best-of-7 series. Our first state is Michigan, the Mitten, the Great Lakes state with no clean water. The offense doesn't possess the greatest wing depth, but the strength is at center with Madonna, Waite, Kessler, and Larkin. Defense also has a lot to love with Hatcher, Alan Frady, Mark Howe, and Brian Rafalski, who I believe has such an underrated career. Then in net, Miller will get the start, but his backup is not bad at all. Now we go to Minnesota. They got a good hockey team in Minnesota. Some depth all around, especially on the right wing. Defense is very strong too. Phil Housley should be impossible for other teams to stop. And to find a good Minnesotan goaltender, you have to go all the way back to the 1930s where Frank Brimsek dominated. Now to the ill estate, and that is Illinois. On the right side, they pretty much have nothing. Center depth is also low except for the Polish-American legend Eddie Olchuk. The left side is the best, but it says more about the other two than it does the left wings. The defense is good with Chelios being the best and biggest name. Craig Anderson will need to play on his head though for Illinois to make any noise. Wisconsin, home of the Cheeseheads, and speaking of cheese, Phil Kessel is on the first line with Joe Pavelski. Those two should form a great duo. The offense is mostly lacking though. The D is good with the suitors, but there are some definite problems. Only 2 goaltenders in NHL history, and neither are that good. Last and least is Ohio. Now before I break down Ohio's bad roster, let's remember, by being here they're better than 41 states, so congrats Ohio. Here's your participation ribbon. There's just not enough on this Ohio team. They have some nice pieces, but it won't be enough. I still love you Ohio. Elliott had the first down. Michigan is the big winner. They go a perfect 4 for 4 to move on. Minnesota lost 1 game to Michigan and comes in second. Wisconsin and Illinois just came up short but lost close games to Minnesota. Then Ohio, here's that participation ribbon I talked about. Don't feel bad. West Coast, Best Coast, East Coast, East Coast, or something like that, except for when it comes to hockey. In Connecticut, they're such a small state but have so much good current NHL talent. The forwards are pretty good, and I love the first line and think Cam Atkinson is so underrated. After Hainsey and Shankirk though, the D is terrible. In net is Ben Bishop's backup, or as he's more commonly known, Jonathan Quick. Team Connecticut will look to avenge the Hartford Whalers. Well, Pennsylvania met the requirements. They have 12 forwards, 5 defensemen, and Matt Barkowski. They're really nothing special except for in net, where they have a legend and a young star. The state of every sitcom ever boasts a pretty good hockey team. The right wings have a lot of talent with Kane, the Mullins, and Gianta. Lefts are decent but more supporting players than stars. The centers are all nice compliments to the wings though. Matthew Schneider will look to lead the defense, but Bogosian and Komisarek should help. In net, Jimmy Howard will have to play like the Jimmy Howard early in his career and not the Jimmy Howard of the past few years. Our final team is the Masso capital, Massachusetts. They have a strong offense led by the amazing top line of Tkachuk, Roenick, and Bill Guerin. More great players and young stars like Jack Eichel, Hayes, Kreider, and Coyle fill the offense. The weak spot is defense, but it's not terrible. You could do worse than Yandel, Carlson, Potai, Norton, Gill, and Brain Dead Analyst. In net, they have 2 terrific goalies, but Corey Schneider will get the start. In the group, Massachusetts dominated, winning 5-1, 10-1, and 5-0. New York comes in second with a lone loss to Massachusetts. Connecticut goes the way of the Whalers, and Pennsylvania tried their hardest and had fun, so that is all that matters. In the semifinals, Michigan would crush New York, sweeping them. Massachusetts and Minnesota was more competitive on paper, but all of Massachusetts' wins were pretty much blowouts. The best hockey state is Massachusetts. They take the series 4-2. The difference maker, 2 things. The first line for Massachusetts and goaltender Corey Schneider. Keith Tkachuk averaged a goal per game and had 4 assists in the finals alone, while Bill Guerin averaged an assist per game too. Corey Schneider was then able to outduel Ryan Miller. Schneider held Michigan to 1 goal in all 4 of Mass's wins. Keith Tkachuk averaged a goal per game and had 4 assists in the finals alone, while Bill Guerin averaged an assist per game also. Corey Schneider was then able to outduel Ryan Miller. Schneider held Michigan to 1 goal in all 4 of Mass's wins. When we ran this tournament last year, Michigan took it. Now in 2016-2017, they pass on the crown to Massachusetts. Thanks for watching. Follow me on Twitter and Insta, like me on Facebook, check out the subreddit, and if you want my thoughts on the trade deadline, watch my last video. Have a good weekend. Peace.